Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with veteran New York City-based jazz guitarist and educator, Tony Romano. We caught up with this busy artist to talk about his brand new 2024 CD, the Three Chord Monte, along with the great life that he's led in the world of jazz and beyond. He has been a visible part of the New York City music scene for over 20 years. With a wide range of playing styles, he has toured worldwide and performed and recorded with so many notable cats in jazz, Latin pop, Broadway, and on with legends like Randy Brecker, Joe Locke, and beyond. His guitar work can be heard on all 52 episodes of the BBC series Third and Bird, as well as the Discovery Channel miniseries Going, Gone. He is also an adjunct professor at Five Towns College up in his neck of the woods. Dig this story.
Joe D'Amito, Neon Jazz. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you, Joe?
I'm excellent. Nice to meet you.
Likewise. Yeah, thanks for the call.
Yeah, thank you for taking a minute out today. I'm looking forward to getting into the album and your career. And before we do that, I want to begin with, 4 years ago, this pandemic really threw a monkey wrench into everything that everybody was doing, especially the world of artists. How did you survive that time period, and how much was this album influenced by living through that?
How much was I missed the very last part of your question.
How much of living through that pandemic influenced this album and the material that's on it?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I would say that the overall sort of effect of the pandemic, if there was one thing, although none of those pieces were written during the pandemic, but the reality of the pandemic influenced, I would say, the need to get the need is the right word, wanting to get things done when you can do them and not procrastinating, which is an easy thing to do when you're mostly working as a side person. I'm going to put that one off. I'll get to it eventually. I have something, and just taking the time and saying, you know what, I need to do this now and get it done with. Maybe that would be an influence or a deciding factor or a little bit of a motivator, because having not been able to do much during the pandemic, although, I did the whole online Zoom concerts, I played a festival in Turkey online, just the availability of having people in person to play and do something in the studio. Yeah, just getting things done. I never thought about that per se, the way that you framed that question.
Yeah, I think, and there was a lot of people out there that I think got around a project that they were putting off and really kind of, brought things into focus. But I'm curious, more specifically with this album, what was the artistic vision? What was the ultimate overriding artistic idea of this album?
You know what, Joe? I'm going to back up for 1/2 a second and say where there is a direct link between the pandemic time period and this record would be, for me, now that I'm thinking of it, was I had not been playing much electric guitar for years. A little bit here and there when I needed to on occasion. Certainly not practicing on an electric guitar. I was strictly playing acoustic. Most people were hiring me for the nylon string stuff, and during the pandemic, I suddenly was home all day long, and I spent a lot of time getting back into playing, sort of rekindling my love with the electric guitar. So that would have a direct correlation to this record. Now, as far as the sort of impetus for this record in general, is that what you were that was the second question?
Yes.
So it was January 1st of 2023. I sat down and wrote one of the tunes on the record. Which one was it? It was it was reflection, right? So I sat down and I wrote reflection like straight away, maybe an hour and change. And I thought like, let me what would it be like? I always wanted to do this. Let me see if I could write a piece of music every day for the month of January, and let's see if, let's put some parameters on it. So, because I write all the time, but the little bits and pieces here and there. It's like, sometimes things come to you all in one shot. Sometimes, I've got an idea. There's 8 measures. And then it just sort of languishes in my staff book until I get around to looking at it again or not. And so I set this parameter for myself of like, okay, I'm going to write something every day. And the only, of the sort of parameter is I have to finish the piece in one sitting. So it could be an hour, it could be 2 hours. It doesn't have to be my favorite piece of music. I don't have to. So instead of, sort of going back and forth with tons of revisions as I'm apt to do, I just had to finish the piece. So I did that every day for about 18 days. And so, as you can imagine, I might have said, okay, I'll give myself an hour or two, but sometimes, there goes 3 hours and 4 hours. And so I started to not take care of other things that needed to be taken care of. Some things were falling by the wayside. I said I need to take a break. So I did for a couple of days and then went back to it maybe about 4 or 5 days later and finished out the month of January with some other pieces. And as I was writing these pieces, January is usually a fairly slow month. I was doing some sessions, getting together with some of my friends, some of which are on the record, coming over and just, let's play some tunes. Everybody brings tunes. And some of these tunes that I wrote, we played, and I was like, yeah, I really like that. So and one day I was doing a session with Jennifer, the bass player on the record, Jennifer Vincent, and Rob Garcia. And I was like, I think I want to record these. And then I ended up bringing in Paul Carlin on sax for some of them. So, because I did write a couple specifically with the sax in mind, with Paul in particular.
So talk to me a little bit about what you're hoping the listener gets from this album.
Well, I hope they get some enjoyment and just enjoy the music. If there was one thing that I would maybe feel like, of course, you want somebody to listen to the music and enjoy it, so that's, of course, number one. But I'd like people to sort of experience my different types of writing. There's a cohesion to it, but there's also a fairly broad swath of styles on the record, which, can be good for some people and could be not so good for other people, as a listener goes. Sometimes I think we get very much like directed into like sort of a homogenous thing on particular records where it's like, which is not necessarily a bad thing, and this record has a sort of variety of stuff, from the Afrobeat stuff to a little bit of straight ahead jazz to some sort of crossover stuff that I don't really know what to call it. Maybe there's definitely a little rock and blues influence. And it's just, they're just original pieces that, were able to come to life in the recording, and we didn't rehearse. The other thing is that I hope people get to hear is that there's a lot of communication on the record between all the players. The four of us have never played together in a group setting before this recording, other than doing a rehearsal for the record. But we've all played together in, 2 or 3 of us have all played together probably in one context or another for 25 years. We've known each other on the New York scene for a long time and played in all different groups together. So there's a lot of personal camaraderie, and there's a lot of musical dialogue going on, and I hope people can hear that.
So how did this jazz journey, this journey into the music begin for you?
Yeah, it was a very clearly delineated point. It was August 24th of 1987. I heard John Coltrane for the first time, and I hadn't really listened to jazz. I never actively picked up a jazz record and put it on. Of course, I heard this and that, and I played trumpet. It was my first instrument, and played in a concert band in middle school, and so I was exposed to some different music, but I never listened to the music and was never seduced by it. But I heard Coltrane playing impressions. I had one of my sisters, my first oldest sister, had moved away, and she left a record collection behind, and I rummaged through it one day, and out of all the records, I just picked up this Coltrane one. I was like, this looks interesting, put it on, and immediately knew, I was like, that's what I want to play. I want to play music with that freedom of expression, that idiom, although this record is not, by any means a straight ahead record or a hard bop record or anything like that.
So what was the first live jazz show you saw that blew you away?
Oof. Wow. Well, first live jazz show that I saw that blew me away. That's a tough one. I'll say, because I don't remember the first jazz concert I ever went to, or maybe show, but one of the earliest, which would have been, I saw Miles Davis on a double bill with John McLaughlin. And so it was the Miles Davis incarnation with Kenny Garrett, and Joe DiFrancesco, I believe, was one of the keyboard players on it. And truth be told, I was definitely way into Miles, but I was super into John McLaughlin's trio, and that was with Trilak Gurtu and I believe Kayakar on bass. And I was sitting, it was an outdoor show on the pier in New York, and I was about ninth row, and like McLaughlin came out and played his set, and I didn't want McLaughlin to stop. I was just like completely enamored with what he was doing and that group, and the interaction again, the communication that they had as a trio. And then when he finished, Miles came out, and once Miles started playing, I think I completely forgot about John McLaughlin, because the Miles show was outrageous. It was just, a whole different thing. I had been so into the early Miles stuff that I wasn't as into at that time what he was doing when I was listening to whatever his newer recordings were. But hearing it live was phenomenal. It gave me a different appreciation for what he was doing.
That is amazing. That would have been an amazing show to see together. So I'm curious, you've been doing this for a long time. Mm-hmm. What do you like the best about being a professional musician?
Man, it's the people. I love connecting with different musicians. I have a very broad taste in music, and I love to be able to play different styles of music on a high level, with high level people, and get challenged, like I've always listened to a lot of different styles of music, and but I hadn't always played all those styles. And when somebody would call me and be like, "Oh, I need somebody for I have this gig with a reggae band," I'd be like, I've listened to plenty of reggae, but I never played any. I'm like, "Sure, I'll do it." And I would just study like crazy and go and do the gig, and then I end up playing in reggae bands for a number of years. Same thing with country music. When country was really hitting, somebody asked me to sub on a country gig. I grew up listening to a fair amount of country and bluegrass music. My parents really liked that stuff. So I was like, sure, I don't know the repertoire. You got charts? Great. And then I ended up doing several years of country gigs, and it was paying the bills, and I was having a good time with it. So I like to be able to just play with different musicians that are, great at what they do, and enjoy the experience.
And the one thing too about your career is that you've played around a lot of legends and luminaries and veterans that have been around for a while. What did you learn from those types of players that you in turn try to teach younger players that you get around now?
That's a great question. All the really, let's say, older generation of players that I played with, that, maybe it was just for a night or two nights, maybe could have been, in a recording situation or in an academic environment. I would say in almost all cases, they were just, all those people were kind to me, and just generous with their knowledge and information, like one, so this is in a playing context now, but in a academic setting, when I was doing my graduate degree, Roland Hanna was one of my teachers. And Roland, one day I had this arranging class with him. It was like my first semester at the school and at the Aaron Copland Conservatory at Queens College. And so we all had to do these arrangements for whatever the instrumentation in the ensemble was. So after we played my arrangement, he was very complimentary about it, and then he mentioned something like, you might have thought about this or that in this one particular spot. So after the class, I said, Roland, can you explain to me a little bit more about, what you were saying? And he sat down at the piano with me for about 40 minutes. We just sat there, and that kind of became a weekly ritual where I would sit with him after class and go through stuff, and he would just be so forthcoming with information because, he knew how serious I was about it. And, when somebody, as a teacher myself, teacher both in the sense of teaching privately in a college environment or, being a teacher in a sort of indirect way if you're playing with younger people that aren't as experienced, when they're serious about it and they love what they're doing and they're all in, you want to give them everything, like, there's no like, I'm not going to show that guy that trick. I'm not going to teach that person. I'm not going to teach somebody like my little secret, No, I'm going to give them everything I can because that's what was, I feel was like bestowed upon me. And like one time I was playing in Philadelphia, I was subbing for Paul Bolenbach on a gig, and it was Randy Brecker was playing trumpet, and Dave Valentine was on flute. And man, I hadn't met either of them, and just got up and played the set. And afterwards, I was backstage, and like with Randy Brecker, my God, one of the greatest, and he was the nicest person to me, and he gave me his card. He said, "Call me anytime." And I was like, wow, it was like I was so just humbled by that. And so there's lots of experiences like that I've had that, yes, make me want to, just sort of naturally influence the way you treat other people and the way that you, I think, want to give them everything to keep the art going,
So at the end of the day, why do you love this music we call jazz?
I would say because I don't feel like there's any boundaries. I mean, jazz is such a, well, it's just a name, but if you look at the sort of the large swath of music that jazz encompasses, it's freedom of expression, and it's sort of like unlimited. There's no boundaries on what you can do. I feel like there's it's the most expressive forum to work in, or expressive form of music. Even though that form of music is so different, if you look at, quote unquote free jazz or bebop or hard bop or whatever genre you might be talking about, modern jazz, contemporary jazz, it's all, I don't feel like there's any restrictions, and that's one of the most attractive things to me.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but ultimately you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Wow, that's a good one. Who do I think I am? I think I'm somebody who's endlessly curious about learning the next thing. As I get older, certain things I realize, come a little bit slower in the physical learning process, maybe, than they did when you're, in your 20s or something like that. Every single day I'm trying to work on something new, work on moving my level of playing to the next place, and my level of composition to the next place, and learning from everybody that I can. So that means I'm constantly listening to all types of music and trying to, just progress and enjoy it as much as I can, so I can keep, performing and writing and recording, and, it's what I love to do. So
Tony, Three Chord Monte is the newest album. If anyone wants to pick up a physical copy or catch you live, how do they find out about it? How can they do that?
You can, well, definitely sell it through my website, which is, www.tonyromanomusic.com. And, there's other, you can find it on Bandcamp. All my live performances, public performances, are listed on my website. So everything, anytime I'm playing somewhere with my group or another group, which is, predominantly what I do is working as a side person, you can find that on my website.
Excellent. Tony, this has been wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you there's been so many good stories. I really appreciate your time and giving it to us here at Neon Jazz.
Well, I really appreciate you, you asking me for the interview. I really appreciate it very much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Tony for hanging out a little bit here with Neon Jazz. If you want to hear more Neon Jazz interviews, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube. And for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.